You can be successful and still feel unfulfilled. That's because somewhere along the way, most women stopped choosing themselves. Let's talk about why, but better yet, what you can do to get back on track and reconnect with your purpose. Stay tuned. We're going to talk about it. Welcome to the secret formula of femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Monteiro, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Secret Formula of Femininity. I am your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence, Dr. Nicole. If you heard last week's episode, you know I had an amazing powerhouse of a guest, Sister Adiola, and we talked all about women losing sight of their purpose. And in today's episode, I'm going to dig a little deeper into why that happens for women and exactly what you can do to reconnect to yourself. There's usually this quiet experience that so many women have, but they don't always say it out loud. This could be you. You're doing what needs to be done, you're showing up, you're making things work, handling all of the responsibilities, taking care of everyone. From the outside, I'm sure your life might look full, like you have it going on. Not just the success, but like all the parts about all the people in your life. You might seem stable, successful, but on the inside, this is the part that people don't see. Something just feels off. And it can be hard to explain, which is why so many women keep it inside. It's like that sense of disconnection. And when you know the opposite, when you know what it feels like to be connected and to be in tune with yourself, then you know that that disconnection is the exact opposite. And as that's happening, you might have this quiet thought like, why don't I feel like myself anymore? Or you might have a deeper thought like, where did the version of me go who felt alive and clear and inspired, not just making it, but actually thriving? That's why in this episode, I want to talk about something that so many women experience, especially those women who are used to being strong, responsible, dependable, and holding it all together. And it's that feeling of being disconnected from your purpose. But I want to offer you this truth in the beginning before we go any further. And that's that you didn't lose your purpose. You may have slowly lost connection to yourself, that inner part of yourself. But first, let's talk about what is actually happening beneath the surface while all this is going on. Because this is not something that just happens randomly out of the blue, although it might feel like it. The first thing is that many women have been carrying too much for too long. Many of us become the one who keeps it all together, who supports everyone else, who even is at the point where they can anticipate everyone else's needs, solve everyone else's problems, and actually just become that person that everyone relies on, but you're kind of in the background. So you're invisible, but you're visible and you're there when everybody needs you. And over time, that can become your identity. It's almost as if when you're constantly focused outwards on everybody else and what they need, you lose that connection inside. And you stop asking yourself, what do I need? What do I feel? What do I want? And you're really focused on what do they want? What do they feel? What do they need? And the problem with that is that identity gets tied to responsibility. So for many women, our worth becomes connected to being the dependable one, being the helpful one, the good girl. There's so many different terms for it. And being needed. That's where some of us can't break away from it because we like to feel needed. So even when we're tired, even when something feels off, we keep going. You keep going because it feels like slowing down feels really weird and unfamiliar because you're like, what am I sitting here doing? Nobody's calling, nobody's asking me for anything. And sometimes that can feel uncomfortable. It forces you actually to sit with yourself and just really ask yourself what's missing, Where are people not showing up for you? See, that's the part we don't talk about. When we're in the midst of all this busyness and meeting other people's needs, we don't have time to stop and think about the void that others have left with us. We are not forced to then look at our relationships and ask ourselves, is this working for me? Where do I need to speak up? Where do I need to let people know what I need? I know that was something that I really had to grapple with, and it was uncomfortable. It wasn't cute to really look at the relationships that were draining me and where I, to be honest, felt taken for granted. And I feel that, and I've heard that from so many women, that they feel overlooked, invisible, only called on when someone needs them. And while in the beginning they were okay with it, when they really sit with what that means about their relationships, it means that it's a signal that they have to make some changes, that things are not okay the way they are. The other thing that happens with constantly meeting other people's needs is that your nervous system stays on constantly. So when you're constantly doing, managing, thinking ahead, carrying the emotional weight, your body stays in this sort of low level stress state. So it's not full on fight or flight, but it's a level of constant stress that's put on your system. It's like if you're somewhere near an airport and constantly you just hear, it's like a constant buzz or sound that's in the background that you don't always notice, but it's irritating your system nonetheless. And when your nervous system is constantly activated, you lose access to things like clarity because clarity requires quiet. You lose access to your creativity. Creativity requires space. You lose access to your desire because you're so tuned in to what other people want. And the worst part, and this is where the purpose gets lost, you lose touch with your intuition. Intuition requires quiet. Intuition requires space and it requires time and it requires the willingness to listen to yourself over others. What I need you to know is that when your body is constantly in survival mode, it's hard to feel connected to meaning and to purpose. There's something else that happens quietly while this is all going on. Without you even realizing it, you become known as the strong one, the one who handles things, the one who doesn't fall apart, the one who seemingly doesn't have needs and has it all together. But strength without space to soften or even fall apart comes at a real cost. The first cost is you become the roles that you move through life as. So if you're the provider, the caregiver, the partner, the professional, those aren't just roles, they actually become who you see yourself as and who others see you as and treat you as. And those roles become so loud, actually the loudest in the room, that your inner voice, that inner intuition, slowly quiets to where you almost stop hearing it at all. It's not necessarily gone, it's always there, but you're just not hearing it because you're tuned in to all the other noise in the room. And with most of these things that we talk about in this space, I know it intimately. It's not just the women I've worked with, it's myself. There was a moment when I realized that I could go through an entire day being productive, right? Getting things done, being helpful, being present for everyone else, moving from this task to that, moving from this thing to that thing, this task to that task, and still not feeling connected to myself. And the moment I realized that was really important because I realized that I was showing up for everything except for myself. And it really made me cry. It was sad because I was like, how did I get here? But when I walked it back, I understood the role of taking on the identity of all of these roles and responsibility and putting everyone else first. It really caused me to deplete myself. And in the process, I was getting triggered by little things that everybody else was doing, what somebody said, what they didn't say, who showed up, who didn't show up, as opposed to really realizing I had to show up for myself. And the emotional truth that we really need to recognize is that many of us are not disconnected because we don't have purpose. We have purpose. We're disconnected because we've been prioritizing everything else for so long that we've lost that inward connection to ourselves. The purpose is there, we're just disconnected from it. So let's talk about the nuts and bolts of how you get to the point where your purpose starts to feel so far away. One is that there's no space to hear yourself. Purpose is not this loud yelling thing, it's not chaotic. It does not compete with noise. It requires you to be still. It requires you to have space to reflect. It requires quiet. So if you're not going to give yourself those things, then purpose is like, okay, I'm here. Let me know when you're ready. It's not going to compete. And in that way, it just reminds me of feminine energy. I always talk about feminine women. We're not out there competing. I love the saying, the lioness does not have to roar to woo the crowd, right? Purpose is not going to try to compete for your attention. It'll be there though when you're ready to turn your attention to it. So you have to recognize when your life is full of constant movement, there's no space for you to listen to that purposeful voice. The other thing that happens is a lot of times we have a fear of change. Sometimes for you to really reconnect with your purpose, you have to say no. You have to set boundaries. You have to look at some of those relationships and recognize that it's time to do something different. That friend who forgets the most important things in your life, hey, you might need to reconfigure that. Here's my favorite. Those people, those so-called friends who sometimes throw shade or downplay your accomplishments or aren't excited for you, when you really stop and think about that, it may require a change in that relationship. It may require you to be vulnerable and open up and let that person know how it makes you feel, or it may require you to set some different boundaries in that relationship. And to be honest, that can be so scary. So, what do we do instead? We just stay where things feel familiar. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to upset people. So, we keep ourselves in constant movement so we don't have to face the reality of some of our relationships or just some of our circumstances and situations that we're in. The other thing you have to realize is that sometimes you have outgrown aspects of your life. Sometimes disconnection isn't really about loss, it's just about growth and expansion. You have evolved, but your life may not have caught up yet. Your inner self, your inner purpose, your inner sense of who you are, that may be expanding, but the rest of your life hasn't caught up yet. Listen, sis, feeling disconnected doesn't always mean something is wrong. It may just mean that it's time for some things to change and it's time for you to have the courage to do it. So let's talk about what do you do when you realize you're ready to reconnect to your purpose. And I like to talk about what I call the feminine path back to yourself because feminine energy gives us a really beautiful way to reconnect to ourselves and to our purpose. Coming back to your purpose is not about doing more, not at all. It's about reconnecting and setting the stage or the environment for that reconnection to really grow. It's like you have to make the soil ready for those flowers that are ready to. The first thing you have to do is come back to your body and ask yourself a few things in terms of what's happening in your body and your energy. One is what feels nourishing, like what gives you energy, what feels draining. So, the things that just make you feel absolutely tired. And it's not always lack of sleep, it's like the energy that you're surrounding yourself with. What feels aligned, meaning, what are the things that when you do them, you just feel like, yes, I am in the right place. This is the right time. That is what alignment is. Your body will often tell you before your intellectual self does. So you'll feel at peace and at ease in your body. You'll be sleeping well. You'll be in tune with when you're hungry, when you're not hungry, when you need to rest. You'll be moving well. You won't feel all of those butterflies and that tension either in your jaw, your shoulders, in your abdomen, your chest area. You will feel more at ease. And that will be your body telling you that you're reconnecting and coming back to yourself. The second thing is let yourself want again. I've been talking to so many women about how we tend to be overly practical. We're doing what needs to be done versus what we want to do. Many women stop asking, what do I want? What do I desire? Not what's practical, what makes sense, but what feels true? What dreams do I have that I'm ready to just think wildly outside of the box and not criticize myself or worry about what the peanut gallery and what other people are going to think about it? That is what letting yourself want and desire again looks like. The next thing is creating small moments of stillness. You don't have to do a full life reset. And my issue with waiting for a full reset is that you'll be waiting forever. But if you take the small steps to put more stillness into your life, that is going to help you get to the reset quicker than just waiting for the vacation next year to do it. You actually need moments of reconnection. Things like quiet mornings, a slow start, right? Journaling, walking without distraction, walking where you're just observing and looking. It's like a rhythmic movement that gets your body back on track with yourself. It could be spending time reading. It could be reaching out to a friend that you're really fond of that you haven't talked to in years. I remember I did that a couple of months ago. It's a good friend of mine. We're in different cities, both have small kids, families. We've just been, busy. But every so often, I'll think of her. There's another friend, another mentor in the same situation, and I will reach out to them and I will say, "Hey, I miss you so much. What are you up to? I know we might not be able to see each other now, but I want to share with you what I'm doing. I want to know what, but I want to share with you what I'm doing. I want to know what you're doing." So that's a way of putting myself back in connection with the people that feed me versus just giving all of my time and energy to the situation or the people or the circumstances that are draining me. And I always think it's funny that, like, a lot of times we will complain about the people and things around us without recognizing the power that we have to actually change our environment. So these small moments of stillness and reconnection matter more than you think. The other thing you have to do is learn to separate yourself from your roles. And that's more of a mindset shift. You all know that I love to talk about the mindset shifts that have to happen sometimes before we take on that new identity and those new behaviors. So, that mindset shift is seeing yourself as separate or different from the roles that you have. You are not just what you do for other people. There's a version of you underneath all of that. It's like a hidden gem that you have to just pull back all the layers, pull back the blankets, and find that part of yourself. And that hidden gem, that core part of you, she deserves all the love and care and attention in the world too, not just all of the attention that you've been putting outward. Your purpose is not something you have to chase. It's just something that you have to allow yourself to return to. All right, so let's get some of these questions in. The first question I have is, what if I don't know what my purpose is? Here's the thing, you don't have to have the full picture. Purpose is not a blueprint. You just start with what is meaningful to you right now. That's where that stillness comes in. Sometimes people are not ready to be still because they feel like, I got to have the purpose in place first. But it's actually the opposite. You have to start being still so you can really connect to what is most meaningful to you right now. You don't need the full picture. Just start with the here. The second question is, can I reconnect without changing everything? Yes, you can. You don't have to make a huge change all at the same time, but you might want to think about what are the small shifts that you have to make. Things like boundaries, more time for yourself, more honesty about what you need. So these are more like internal things. Some of it you might communicate to other people, but it's not like you're going to blow up the spot right away. You're really starting with the small shifts that you have to make within yourself. The third question is, what if I'm afraid to want more? That is key. That's a core question right there because I think that's what stops a lot of women and that's where they get stuck. And that fear makes complete sense because wanting more often means what? It means being more visible. Being more visible can be very threatening for us in a lot of ways for so many reasons. And that could be a whole episode right there. Number one, so many of us are used to being both invisible and hyper visible. hyper visible when it's time to be criticized, when it's time to be told we're not good enough, or when we're told to shrink. This is especially true for Black women and women of color. A lot of times we might fear being visible because our dreams evoke fear in other people. So they start projecting those fears onto us and trying to downplay us, dismiss us. Like I said, those subtle shade comments, that's other people projecting their fear onto you, and it's making you shrink back down. But let me tell you, you have to be mindful and know what it is. You have to know that other people's fears that they express is their projection onto you. And you really don't have to take it in. You can hear it, you can recognize it, you can decide how you want to respond, but it's not yours to take in. If you're afraid to want more, you might want to change some of your social circles. You might want to get around people who want more, desire more, and dream bigger. And that way, yours won't seem so out of place and you won't get all of those negative projections. Those are some great questions. Thank you so much. And I know that those questions really got to the core of where so many women are stuck, and quite honestly, where I have been stuck before. Especially that visibility piece. That is a doozy right there, because it can be hard to put ourselves out there for critique, to feel like a target of other people's fears, but it's something that's necessary. And once you start exercising that muscle, it just becomes more and more effortless over time. So, listen, if this resonated with you, I want you to ask yourself, where have I been carrying too much? Where have I been disconnected from myself? And what would it look like to come back? Not by doing more, but actually by listening more to yourself. So, let me close with this story. There's a woman that I work with who, on paper, had a beautiful life. It's like they said it was for the gram. She had that Instagram life. She was accomplished. She was respected. She was deeply loved by her family. This wasn't a down and out story, but she was also the one that everyone relied on. And when she sat across from me, she said something that just stuck with me because I could actually relate to it. She said, I don't think I've asked myself what I want in years. I actually can't remember the last time I asked. And when she said it, she didn't really cry right away. It wasn't like boohoo tears. She just paused as if her body had to catch up with that realization and that truth. And then she said, I don't even know where to start. Like, if someone were to ask me right now, I don't know what to say. And that moment wasn't about her losing her purpose. It was about how long she had been living without checking in with herself. As I said, the purpose is there, but when you're not checking in with yourself, it gets buried beneath everything else. So we didn't really start with a big life change and big life audit. We didn't start with purpose statements or blueprints or plans. We started with something so much more simple. I asked her, what feels good to you right now in this moment? And at first, she didn't really know, because when you've been disconnected for so long, even that question feels not just unfamiliar, but scary. But what happened is, slowly she started noticing. She would give herself 5 minutes of quiet here, a little bit there. She started choosing the small things, things like sitting down to eat instead of rushing, taking walks without her phone so she could really take in what was around her instead of scrolling, doom scrolling. Things like saying no without over explaining herself, just simply saying no, and letting herself rest without guilt. And as she did those seemingly small things, something began to shift. It wasn't like all at once where it was this big explosion, but slowly and steadily, her voice came back. Not her physical voice, but her inner voice. Her clarity came back. She started to know what she wanted and who she was. Her sense of herself came back. And she realized that her purpose never actually disappeared. She knew that the next act or next phase for her had something to do with travel and connecting with other women and doing something on a larger level than what she had been doing, but not in a way that it was going to deplete her and drain her. And she realized that that purpose was there all along. She had been doing a little bit of it here and there, but it wasn't this full thing that was clear for her. And we smiled together as she voiced and laughed and said, "You know what? My purpose never disappeared. It was just waiting for me to come back to myself." Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not to go out in search of your purpose, but it's to come back to the part of you that already knows your purpose. If you're ready to reconnect with yourself, your boundaries, and your purpose, this is the work we do inside the Boundaries to Bliss Society Inner Circle. This is where women learn how to move from burnout and disconnection into clarity, softness, and more fulfillment. You can learn more about it at the link in the show notes. As always, don't forget to share this with a woman who needs this message and needs this inspiration, and leave us a comment or a review on the podcast platforms. It really helps and it means the world to me. Thanks again for joining. I'll see you in the next episode. And as always, stay clear, stay soft, and stay feminine. I'm Dr. Nicole.